Hey YouTubers, subscribe to Line Screw 1.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on board.
Oh! Well, hello tubers. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in this crazy YouTube universe. So today's topic of the RV genre is going to be rent or own. What's cheaper? I did the work so you don't have to. Now, I did talk about this probably about a decade ago. I did a video and I wanted to see if it was still held true. Now there's a few things that we have to discuss in terms of groundwork of comparison so that we actually compare apples to apples. As you know, there's many kinds of RVs, from travel trailers to campers to camper vans, you know, class A, B, C. You know, you got the diesel pushers, the buses. So yeah, there you go. You know, so for the sake of the discussion today, we're going to talk about renting new or near new class C RVs, mid-size ones, typically 24, 26, 27 feet, somewhere in there, something that could sleep 4 adults, 2 kids, you know, 6 people. And it's still quite amazing how when I drive around white neighborhoods here in Canada, you know, hard to believe many cities, us white people are minorities, or someplace like Richmond and Surrey. But I'm out here in the Fraser Valley today. It's a beautiful day, so I figured I couldn't resist doing a video outside during my travels about on the bike. So what I did today was I went on one of the big national rental company sites in Seattle to price out a peak rental for 3 weeks in July, coming up next July. And with taxes and all the fees for a mid-size Class C RV, you're looking at around $6,700 US. Fairly reasonable. Now, you don't even have to compare gasoline prices versus renting or owning, because whether you rent, whether you own, you got to pay for the gas. You know, there's no such thing as a wet rental. So we can ignore things like the gasoline costs. So now, if you were to buy a new or near new Class C of average, you know, build quality, I'm not talking about the premium brands, but you're looking at between $90,000 and $120,000 if you shop around, and that's new or near new. Sometimes, you know, when they get these models that don't sell, they're like new but they're a year or two old, but they're still new, you can sometimes get a deal. But for the sake of discussion, let's just round it to $100,000. So 100 grand to buy. Now you're gonna have to pay sales tax. Sure, you pay sales tax when you rent an RV too, but it's not the same big bite, because most jurisdictions, when you buy a $100,000 RV, you know, sales tax could be 5, 6, 7%, more in some places, in fact. So got to keep that in mind. And the big thing that nobody really talks about until they want to sell or trade is depreciation. As far as I'm concerned, we could almost end the video right here when I say that, you know, the average RV over several years is gonna, especially Class C's, they're gonna depreciate minimum 8%. And I'm being fairly realistic by saying 8%. So right off the hop, $100,000 RV plus the sales tax, and you know, you get that number. Let's say it's 107,000 versus 6,700 bucks just to rent for 3 weeks. You know, we're almost done. We're at a wash right here, and you don't have to worry about the ongoing cost of maintenance and storage, and you know, making sure that roof doesn't leak every winter. So, you know, and there's a tremendous amount of advantages to renting, where, you know, people dream about that big trip of a lifetime to Alaska. There are so many ways that renting can actually make that trip much more enjoyable and cheaper. For example, you know, I most of my life, in the last several decades at least, I've lived near the US border. So I arbitrage the difference between Canada and US on pricing. based on the dollar and, you know, price of different commodities. So, you know, if I was going to rent and do the big trip to Alaska, what I would do is just book, you know, months in advance your airline ticket, fly to Whitehorse, Yukon, where I grew up, or to Anchorage, and pick up a rental there. Yes, you can rent them. You can rent them up there. Yeah. You just got to tell them that you're taking it across international borders. No problemo. And there, off you go. And you're gonna save all the gasoline costs of doing the big drive up there. And you know, if it's just you and your wife, you and your partner, you know, the airfare when booked in advance, or even if you book it on your points, yeah, it's going to be quite reasonable compared to fuel. Because if you lived in Georgia and you're driving all the way up to Alaska and back, I mean, driving through continental United States and then all the way through Western Canada and up through the Yukon, just to get to Alaska, huge amount of fuel, and we're talking round trip. So, speaking of RVs, there's a Class B right there on the dike. So, you know, okay, so you want to own it. Now, if you're going to use it to death, sure, own. But most people, they don't use it more than 3 weeks a year. In fact, the longer you own it, the less you're going to use it. Because all the white neighborhoods here in the Fraser Valley, from Surrey to Hope, all I see is every third or fourth house with an RV parked. And they're parked almost all the time. Sure, they're out for the Canada Day weekend, maybe for hunting season in the fall for the husband. Yeah, sure. But you might as well just rent. And renting gives you the advantage of choosing what you want. So you could even save more money. If you need a smaller unit, they're even cheaper to rent. Lots of traffic here today. I should turn around before I get too far. So if 1 year you don't need the big RV because the kids aren't coming with you and it's just you and your partner, well, rent the small Class C. You're going to save nothing but money. And they're even cheaper on fuel. So you get the advantage of having what you want and paying for what you want, whether it's bigger or smaller. And you got the advantage of renting where you want. Because, you know, let's face it, some people even want an RV in the winter. But let's say you live in Minnesota and you want to do the desert Southwest where the crowds aren't so thick, and you're going to do that in the winter. They'll rent them to you in Phoenix or Las Vegas, or, you know, in the suburbs in Southern California. No problem. Just fly there. Pick up your unit, drive around New Mexico and Arizona, do your thing, and hand in the keys when you're done. And you're going to save nothing but money. Because, look, okay, let's get down to the ongoing covering costs. Insurance keeps going up. And if you've got a horrible driving record, it's even going to be worse. So, you know, you're looking at maybe $100 or so a month for insurance costs to properly insure an RV. And if you live in an HOA or a city that doesn't allow you to park that RV, and trust me, a lot of people fall into this trap. They look around, they go, oh, my neighbor's got an RV parked there. I'm gonna buy one. I'll park it in the driveway too. And then somebody from the city or the HOA goes, yeah, both of you get your RVs out of here. It happens all the time. It's no different than people that will buy land and live on it with their RV until the city comes and says, you can't do that, bud. You're out of here. And then what do? You're forced to spend, if you're lucky and you're in some rural area, you know, $100 a month. But I know the storage places in Metro Vancouver because I priced it out. Because I was once in this predicament when I lived in East Vancouver, where I couldn't park my RV on the side of the road. But you say, but there are homeless that do it in East Van. Yes, they are. But I wasn't one of them. Yeah, the homeless get away with murder while the middle class and the middle earners have to, you know, obey the rules. I know that's the paradox, right? But nonetheless, you know, $250 a month for a rental, just to store it, like we're talking a pad in a storage place, that adds up. And then you gotta, you know, buy a cover, some good tarps. You gotta have a maintenance fund, so you're gonna be kicking in 75 to 100 a month for that, or at least you're smart if you do so, because appliances fail. It will need constant maintenance. It's a mini house that flexes and moves with every gyration of the road. So, you know, I get a kick out of people that go, oh, I've never done any roof maintenance for years and it doesn't leak. And I go, that you know of or yet? Yeah, some people. But, you know, look, I'm on my 4th water heater. For example, you know, tires wear out. Most Class C RVs, you need 6 tires. It includes balancing and installation. It's not cheap. It never ends. So when you're renting and you're going to use it 3 weeks or less, you don't have to worry about these things. You got a breakdown, you make a phone call. You don't worry about the monthly storage bill and sending the check off for that. You don't worry about, oh gee, yeah, the fridge is going, I'm gonna have to replace that. Some of those double door fancy stainless steel RV fridges, not cheap. And God forbid, you know, you want to talk to Christian travelers. My friend in Florida, he had a Class C with a diesel platform. The cost and struggle to find people that will work on a Mercedes, it's a hassle. Now you can find people, but boy, they're going to take your money. They're going to take you, they're going to look you straight in the eye for something that would be simple to do on a Ford gasoline engine. You know, you're looking at double, maybe triple the cost for some things. So if you rent that Mercedes platformed Class C, you don't have to deal with any of this stuff. So, you know, and the constant depreciation. So if you were to just for 5 years rent, you'd save nothing but money, and you'd always have the newest equipment that you would want. Meaning that some years you need a bigger one, you rent the bigger one. Some years, if you don't even need it, you don't even rent one. It just doesn't make sense. Because for the average consumer, like I said, all these white neighborhoods in Western Canada, sitting in their backyard or in their driveway is an underutilized RV. Sure, they can tell you about that great trip that they took, you know, across Canada or down to California or up to Alaska, where they, you know, they used it for 6 weeks the first year. After that, not so much. And why worry about something that just constantly depreciates? And I even had a friend who parked his Class C RV just across the border in Birch Bay, Washington. And I think it was March, you know, the end of winter, he decided to go down there and check on how it was doing. Well, it had been taken over by mice and rats who had homesteaded and completely ripped up the upholstery and made a nice warm home for themselves over the winter. So he had it towed back up to British Columbia, and recounting the story that he told me, he said the adjuster did not even go inside. He poked his head in and essentially said, where do we send the check? It's another thing you got to worry about with RVs. You just park them for the winter, they get mice, they get rats, they get damaged, they get leaks. And if you don't winterize them properly, oh, it's another thing, you don't even have to deal with winterization if you rent. Give them the $6,000–7,000 for the 3 weeks of peak season. You'll save even more if it's shoulder or off season. You'll probably get a rental much less. Yeah, actually, I'm going to leave you with the biggest tip for saving money. I did it before I owned mine. That shoulder season, when the rental companies need to get RVs to staging areas where the biggest demands are. For example, here, a lot of them, for the Germans, they rent them up in Whitehorse, Yukon, where they tour around Yukon and Alaska. So what they need to do is move their fleet from Calgary and Vancouver up there. So what they often do is just blow out the rentals dirt cheap, 90% off. So in May, they're typically looking to get them up there by early May, and then in the fall back down here. So all you got to do is take advantage of these. And I've seen it down in the States too, where suddenly they got to move them to or from Phoenix, or to or from Florida, or to or from Texas, or you get the idea. That's when the bargains are. That's when it's an absolute no-brainer to never own. And in fact, you know, like I've even rented in places where it's not practical to take your RV. I went RVing in New Zealand. Yeah, the money and time it would take to ship your RV to Auckland or Wellington, it's just nuts. You wouldn't do it. Most mortals would not do that. So there you go. Rent and grow rich when it comes to the RV industry. So put your comments and thoughts down below. Hope you're doing well. It's a beautiful day. Time for me to get back on the Ninja and hit the road. So put your comments down below. Over and out.
You make it real, you're the one I want. And to me, we are just like art. You are like me to my autumn rain. And I know that, baby, I want. Moving down a lonely road, carrying a heavy load, looking for that someone to hold. You came in, you shook my peace, you tore down my walls with ease, you turned dust into gold. You make it real, you're the one I want. And to me, we are just like art. You are like me to my autumn rain. And I know that, baby, I want. Yeah, funny how life can be. We can go to figure out what we've done, what we need to do. Yeah, I got you, I got you, I got you.